Have you ever felt as though someone you have never met is somehow drawing closer to your life? Not through coincidence or luck, but because your paths have been quietly moving toward the same destination all along. Imagine if the strongest sign that your soulmate is near is not a message on your phone, an unexpected encounter, or a dramatic declaration of love. Imagine if the very first sign is something unfolding within you at this very moment, something so gentle and almost invisible that most people overlook it completely. Take a moment to reflect on the changes you have noticed in yourself recently. The people who once occupied your thoughts no longer carry the same emotional weight. Things that once seemed essential now feel strangely unimportant. You have become more selective with your time, more comfortable in your own company, and far less desperate to force love to happen. At first, these changes may have felt confusing, but what if they are actually preparing you for one of the most meaningful relationships of your life? Stay with me until the very end, because what you are about to hear may completely change the way you think about love, timing, and destiny. The signs are rarely as obvious as people expect, and they almost never appear in the way we imagine. By the time this message is over, you may realize that your life has already begun changing in ways you never fully noticed, and somewhere, someone may already be making room for you in their heart. The greatest transformations rarely begin with dramatic moments that capture everyone's attention. Instead, they begin quietly, deep within you, long before a meaningful relationship ever appears. Something inside starts to shift. At first, the changes are so subtle that they are almost impossible to recognize. You simply begin to feel that the old version of yourself no longer fits the person you are becoming. Habits that once filled your days lose their appeal. Conversations that once entertained you begin to feel empty. Even your dreams, goals, and priorities quietly start to change. Without fully realizing it, your inner world is preparing for an entirely new chapter. Every lasting relationship begins within long before it appears in the outside world. Many people spend years waiting for obvious signs. They believe everything will change when the right message arrives, when the perfect person appears, or when fate finally brings the right opportunity. They search constantly for proof that love is on its way, while overlooking the quiet transformation already taking place inside them. The truth is that what happens externally is often only the final chapter of a journey that has been unfolding beneath the surface for months or even years. During that unseen process, your heart, mind, and inner world gradually reorganize themselves. You become emotionally ready to receive a kind of love that an earlier version of yourself may not have been able to protect or sustain. This transformation is not always comfortable because real growth requires letting go of familiar habits and old ways of thinking. You begin to notice how much of your energy was once spent trying to earn approval from people who never truly recognized your worth. Little by little, the need to prove yourself starts to fade, replaced by a quiet confidence that no longer depends on anyone else's validation. This confidence does not seek attention or applause. It is calm, steady, and deeply rooted. It reminds you that your value exists whether other people recognize it or not. That single realization begins changing every relationship in your life, starting with the relationship you have with yourself. As your personal growth continues, your emotional responses begin to change as well. Situations that once filled you with anxiety no longer disturb your peace in the same way. Rejection no longer feels like proof that something is wrong with you. Instead, it becomes a gentle reminder that certain people or experiences were never meant to remain in your life forever. You stop treating every delay as evidence that love has forgotten you. Instead, you begin trusting that life unfolds according to its own perfect rhythm, a rhythm that cannot be rushed through fear, worry, or impatience. That trust creates a quiet peace far stronger than the constant search for reassurance. Another beautiful change begins to appear during this season of growth: honesty with yourself. You stop pretending to enjoy situations that leave you emotionally drained. You stop chasing people who repeatedly make you question your worth. You become willing to walk away from relationships and environments that ask you to sacrifice your authentic self just to gain acceptance. Although this season may sometimes feel lonely, it is quietly creating space for something healthier, more genuine, and far more fulfilling. Every connection that no longer serves your growth creates room for one that truly does. Every goodbye that once felt painful becomes an opening for something more aligned with the person you are becoming. Perhaps the most extraordinary part of this transformation is how quietly it happens. There is rarely applause. Few people notice how much stronger you have become. They do not see the fears you faced in private or the countless nights you spent rebuilding yourself after disappointment. Yet those silent victories shape your character more than any public achievement ever could. They prepare you to recognize love not as something that rescues you from emptiness, but as something that beautifully complements the wholeness you have patiently built within yourself. When this inner transformation reaches its fullest expression, you stop searching for someone to fill the empty places in your life, because those places no longer feel empty. A quiet sense of wholeness begins to replace the longing that once guided your decisions. From that place of inner peace and emotional stability, the strongest, healthiest, and most meaningful relationships have the opportunity to grow. One of the greatest misunderstandings about the journey toward true love is believing that life is falling apart when familiar things begin to disappear. When doors close, opportunities fade, or relationships naturally come to an end, many people assume they are moving farther away from the future they hope for. They see loss as failure and endings as proof that life is working against them. Yet sometimes life is not taking something valuable away. Instead, it is gently removing everything that no longer belongs beside the person you are becoming. Before a lasting and deeply fulfilling relationship enters your life, there is often a quiet season of clearing. It is rarely comfortable, but it is often meaningful. Imagine a gardener preparing the soil before planting new flowers. Weeds are removed, and old branches are carefully trimmed, not because they have no value, but because they prevent healthy growth. In much the same way, life may begin clearing away emotional baggage, limiting beliefs, unhealthy attachments, and old habits that once served a purpose but now stand in the way of something better. While this process unfolds, it rarely feels exciting. More often, it feels like uncertainty, disappointment, or unexpected change. Yet, beneath that discomfort, something important is taking shape. Many people remain in relationships simply because they fear being alone. They continue investing in connections that drain their energy, hoping things will eventually improve. Over time, unhealthy patterns become familiar, and familiarity often disguises itself as comfort. As a result, it becomes difficult to recognize when something has already reached its natural ending. As your emotional awareness grows, your standards begin to change. You start noticing which conversations leave you emotionally exhausted instead of encouraged. You become more aware of behaviors you once ignored or excused. Little by little, you begin choosing peace over constant emotional conflict, even when that choice means walking away from people you once believed would always remain part of your journey. Although that decision can be painful, it is also an expression of self-respect. This transformation extends far beyond your relationships. Your daily habits begin changing as well. Activities that once distracted you from uncomfortable emotions no longer provide the same satisfaction. You become more intentional about how you spend your time, what captures your attention, and which influences shape your thoughts. Without forcing yourself, you naturally begin choosing experiences that strengthen your mind and nourish your inner life instead of simply helping you escape boredom or loneliness. While these changes may seem small, they quietly reshape your future and create a stronger emotional foundation for the relationships still waiting to enter your life. Another important part of this journey is letting go of outdated beliefs about your own worth. Perhaps you once believed love had to be earned through endless sacrifice. Maybe you convinced yourself that your value depended on giving everything while expecting very little in return. These beliefs often grow out of painful experiences and, over time, begin to feel like unquestionable truths. But as your self-awareness deepens, you begin challenging those old stories. You realize that genuine love never asks you to abandon who you are. It does not require you to make yourself smaller so someone else can feel bigger. Healthy love allows two people to grow together while each remains true to themselves. What makes this season especially challenging is that life rarely explains its reasons while these changes are happening. You may wonder why certain friendships quietly fade away, why routines that once brought comfort suddenly feel empty, or why opportunities you expected disappear without warning. The answers often become clear only in hindsight. Looking back, you begin to see that every ending created space for something that could never have entered, while your life remained filled with what no longer belonged. The emptiness you once feared was never meant to punish you. Instead, it created room for growth. It gave your heart, your mind, and your life enough space to welcome a relationship built not on fear, dependence, or habit, but on mutual respect, emotional freedom, genuine understanding, and shared growth. As this inner preparation continues, you may also notice small moments that seem especially meaningful. A song appears at exactly the right time. A meaningful conversation offers unexpected encouragement. A familiar number catches your attention more than once. Whether you see these moments as simple coincidences or personal reminders, they often invite you to pause, reflect, and recognize how much you have already grown. Sometimes the quietest moments become gentle reminders that your life is changing in ways you may not fully understand yet, but one day you will look back and see how every step was helping prepare you for what was ahead. Someone you were unexpectedly thinking about may suddenly reach out. Similar lessons begin appearing through different conversations, books, or even complete strangers. On the surface, these moments may seem like ordinary coincidences, yet there are times when life appears to speak through quiet patterns instead of obvious answers. These experiences are not necessarily predicting the future. Rather, they invite you to become more aware of the subtle transformation taking place within you and of the path that is gradually leading you toward the next chapter of your life. Most people move through life without noticing these small moments. Their days are filled with routines, responsibilities, worries, and endless distractions, leaving little room to appreciate the details that make each day unique. But as you continue growing emotionally, something begins to change. Your awareness naturally expands. You start noticing things that once passed by without a second thought. A place you have visited many times suddenly feels different. A simple conversation stays with you long after it ends. A brief interaction with a stranger unexpectedly changes the way you see yourself or the world around you. These moments are not extraordinary because of the events themselves. They become meaningful because they awaken something new within you. As your inner life evolves, the way you experience the outside world changes as well. Instead of feeling the need to control every outcome, you become more willing to observe how life unfolds naturally. You stop rushing through each day searching for one perfect answer and begin realizing that guidance often arrives quietly and unexpectedly. Sometimes it comes through a sentence spoken by someone who has no idea how deeply their words will affect you. Other times, it appears in a book you picked up by chance, only to discover that its pages describe exactly what you have been trying to understand. These experiences feel deeply personal, not because life is sending secret messages, but because your growing awareness allows you to recognize meaningful connections that you may have overlooked before. One of the most fascinating parts of this journey is noticing how certain events seem to happen at exactly the right time. You meet someone who opens a new opportunity just as you are ready for change. A delayed plan unexpectedly leads to a conversation that gently changes the direction of your life. An event you almost decided not to attend becomes the place where an important connection quietly begins. Looking back, these moments often seem connected by an invisible thread, even though they appeared completely ordinary while they were happening. This growing awareness also teaches one of life's most valuable lessons: patience. Instead of trying to force every situation to match your expectations, you begin allowing life to unfold at its own pace. You no longer demand immediate answers to every uncertainty. Instead, you become curious about where each experience may eventually lead. That curiosity gradually replaces fear with openness. It helps you stay grounded in the present rather than becoming trapped in endless worries about the future. From that place of openness, opportunities become easier to recognize. You become more willing to meet new people, explore unfamiliar places, and welcome unexpected changes that your fearful mind might once have avoided. Perhaps the greatest gift of these meaningful moments is not that they promise a particular person or guarantee a certain outcome. Their true purpose is to awaken your awareness. They remind you that life holds far more depth than daily routines often reveal, and that personal growth begins when you become fully present in your own life. As your awareness continues to deepen, you stop chasing coincidences or trying to interpret every unusual event as a hidden sign. Instead, you appreciate these moments as gentle reminders to remain open, observant, and emotionally available. Through this quiet attentiveness, you naturally become prepared to recognize a genuine connection when it finally appears. Not because you were desperately searching for signs, but because you have learned to experience life with a clear mind, an open heart, and a spirit no longer controlled by constant doubt. Eventually, there comes a moment when the longing that once occupied your thoughts begins to loosen its grip. You realize that your happiness no longer depends on whether someone texts you, notices you, or chooses you. Instead of waking each morning wondering who might enter your life, you wake with gratitude for the life you are already creating. It is a subtle shift, yet it changes everything. Your emotional energy stops flowing outward in search of approval and begins flowing inward, strengthening the person you are becoming. Ironically, it is often during this stage that love becomes truly possible, not because you are chasing it harder, but because you no longer depend on it to define your value. Many people mistake desire for desperation. They believe wanting love means constantly thinking about it, worrying over it, and trying to force it into existence through endless effort. They convince themselves that if they become more attractive, say the perfect words, or earn enough admiration, love will finally arrive. Yet this constant pursuit often creates exhaustion instead of connection. It fills the mind with fear, the fear of rejection, the fear of being overlooked, and the fear of being left behind. Those fears become so loud that they drown out the quiet confidence needed to build a healthy relationship. As your emotional maturity continues to grow, something remarkable begins to happen. You stop treating every interaction as a measure of your worth. When someone responds with kindness, you appreciate it without becoming dependent on it. When someone does not respond the way you hoped, you no longer see it as proof that you are not enough. Instead, you understand that every person is on their own journey, and not every connection is meant to become a permanent part of your life. That understanding brings a sense of freedom, allowing you to approach relationships with openness instead of fear, confidence instead of desperation, and hope instead of anxiety. If they do not, you no longer believe that something is wrong with you. You begin to understand that not every connection is meant to last forever, and not every person is meant to stay in your life story. That understanding frees you from the tiring habit of overthinking every conversation, every quiet moment, and every delayed reply. Your peace is no longer controlled by another person's actions because it is built on something much stronger than outside approval. This inner calm also changes the way you move through life. Your choices become guided less by fear and more by honesty. You stop pretending to enjoy things just to fit in or impress people. You no longer hide parts of your personality because you are afraid someone might reject you. Instead, you become more real, more comfortable, and more confident sharing your true thoughts and feelings. Ironically, this honesty makes you much more attractive than any perfect image you could ever create. People naturally feel comfortable around those who are confident in who they are because real confidence creates trust and emotional safety that cannot be copied. You also begin spending your time in a different way. Instead of waiting for life to truly begin after the right person arrives, you invest your energy into the life you already have. You discover new interests, build stronger friendships, work toward meaningful goals, and create experiences that bring joy to your heart. Love is no longer the center of your identity. Instead, it becomes one beautiful part of a life that already feels meaningful. This new way of thinking removes a huge amount of pressure from future relationships because you are no longer expecting another person to be responsible for your happiness. Perhaps the strongest part of this personal growth is that it cannot be rushed or acted out. Real emotional peace develops slowly through self-awareness, healing, and the willingness to let go of the need to control every outcome. There will still be moments when old fears quietly return, but they no longer control your decisions. Instead of reacting without thinking, you respond with patience and understanding. Instead of chasing people who continue creating confusion, you naturally move closer to those whose presence brings peace instead of emotional chaos. From this place of emotional strength, you finally understand love for what it truly is. It is not a reward for working hard or a solution to loneliness. It is a shared journey between two people who have both learned how to stand confidently on their own before deciding to walk forward together. One of the most comforting truths about meaningful relationships is that they are never created by only one person. While you are healing, growing, and preparing yourself for a deeper connection, someone else may also be changing in their own life. You may not know who they are yet. You may have never met them. You may have no idea where they live, what they are experiencing today, or what lessons life is teaching them at this very moment. Yet, just as your own journey has quietly shaped who you are becoming, theirs may be preparing them for the day your lives finally come together. While you are becoming emotionally stronger and more aware, the person who is meant to enter your life may be going through their own quiet season of growth. They too may be creating space in their heart for someone new without even realizing it. This is one of the most comforting truths about genuine connection. It is never about one person doing all the growing while the other stays exactly the same. Instead, it is the meeting point of two different journeys that have been unfolding separately, each moving toward the same destination. Many people believe love begins the moment two strangers first meet. However, the real preparation often begins long before that first conversation ever happens. The person who will one day become important in your life may currently be letting go of old pain, healing from heartbreak, or learning difficult lessons they never thought they would understand. They may be finding the courage to express emotions after spending years hiding them. They may be realizing that success and achievements feel incomplete when there is no meaningful person to share them with. Without even knowing it, they are slowly becoming someone capable of building a relationship they could not have maintained earlier in life. Just as you have faced moments that challenged your confidence and tested your heart, they may have experienced their own seasons of loneliness, uncertainty, and personal growth. They may have wondered why certain relationships ended, struggled with insecurity, or carried fears that made trusting others difficult. None of those experiences mean there is something wrong with them. They are simply part of the journey that develops emotional maturity. Every disappointment teaches patience. Every misunderstanding improves communication. Every setback builds compassion, wisdom, and deeper understanding. Quietly, those experiences prepare them to welcome love without repeating the same painful patterns that once kept them from moving forward. There is something deeply comforting about realizing that delays are not always caused by distance or bad timing. Sometimes they exist because both people are still becoming who they need to become. Imagine meeting someone before either of you had learned how to communicate honestly, respect healthy boundaries, or handle disagreements with understanding. Even if the attraction had been powerful, the relationship might have struggled under emotional habits that neither of you had yet overcome. Readiness cannot be forced. Like every meaningful kind of growth, it develops slowly, often without either person noticing how much they have changed until they look back at the journey they have already traveled. This understanding also changes how you see your own life. Instead of always asking why you have not yet met the right person, you begin asking whether both lives are truly prepared for a relationship that can last. Delays no longer seem like lost opportunities. They become valuable seasons where both hearts are quietly becoming wiser, stronger, and more capable of loving in a healthy way. Frustration slowly turns into trust as you realize that meaningful relationships are not only about meeting the right person, they are also about meeting each other at the right stage of emotional growth. As your outlook becomes more mature, your expectations naturally become healthier. You stop searching for perfection because you understand that every person carries a life story shaped by both happiness and pain. Instead of expecting someone to rescue you from every challenge, you begin appreciating the beauty of walking beside another person who has also become stronger through life's difficulties. Love becomes less about escaping loneliness and more about sharing two meaningful lives that continue growing together. Perhaps the most beautiful part of this realization is knowing that although you cannot control another person's journey, you can trust that they are living one. Somewhere, someone may be learning the very lessons that will one day help them appreciate your kindness, value your presence, and welcome you without fear. Just as your own heart has been quietly making space through healing, self-discovery, and personal growth, theirs may be doing exactly the same. When those two journeys finally meet, the connection rarely feels like an accident. Instead, it feels like the natural meeting place of two people who were unknowingly preparing for each other all along. Many people expect life-changing love to arrive with overwhelming excitement and endless anticipation. They imagine they will feel impatient, restless, and completely overwhelmed with emotion when the right person comes closer. Yet, true readiness rarely feels dramatic. More often, it arrives as a quiet feeling of peace. Instead of trying to force life in a certain direction, you begin moving forward with greater confidence and much less urgency. This confidence does not come from knowing exactly who will enter your life or when they will appear. It comes from knowing that you have become capable of experiencing love without losing yourself along the way. Earlier in life, relationships are often driven by fear. Fear of being alone, fear of rejection, fear of not being chosen, fear that time is running out. These fears place heavy pressure on every interaction, making every disappointment feel deeply personal. When someone is emotionally unprepared, they search for guarantees before allowing themselves to be vulnerable. They want complete certainty that they will never experience heartbreak or abandonment. However, genuine readiness begins when the need for absolute certainty slowly fades away. You begin to understand that vulnerability is a necessary part of every meaningful relationship, and you become willing to love without needing complete control over the final outcome.